What up, YouTube? It's your boy Banks, and we back in the building, you feel me? It's True Talks, because True Talks, all right? Let's get straight right into it. So you already know, man, obviously the other night was definitely a great game, man. It was a great game between the Nets and the Boston Celtics. Game 1 of the 2022 NBA playoffs, first round, obviously. And, a lot of people, are going to look at results and then try to act like and try to cap and make it seem like, oh, Banks, you was wrong and this and that. First of all, one is one game. Let's get that out the way. 2, let's not act like the Celtics didn't win the game off a game-winning layup, okay? So if you want to look at it from this perspective, the way people were talking about the Celtics defense and the Celtics offense, they're multiple guys, and it's not just Jaylen Brown and Tatum, and oh my goodness, that's why this, that, and the third is going to happen. The Nets aren't going to be, it's only going to be KD and Kyrie. They're not going to be this, and this, and this, and this, right? So the way they made it seem like the Nets were probably going to get blown out, right? And even if you didn't make it, you thought it was going to be a handed win. Like, let's stop this. Let's actually analyze what happened. And this is why I try to tell people all that regular season shit that men talk about, when it comes to like, oh my goodness, this team moves the ball and this team's great defense. You're taking it out of context. You're applying how they move as a whole versus all the other teams, and not applying how they're going to move or how they move versus one particular team, which means analyzing the mismatches, analyzing just the matchups in general, analyzing the defensive schemes. What's this team's principle versus what's this team's principle? So when you know that team's principle exists, how are they now going to operate in that context? That's what people don't do. They just toss out just random irrelevant things that have nothing to do with this matchup, that have nothing to do with this context, this situation. That's why I'm here to bring that IQ, because that's what I do. You feel me? So again, even though the Nets lost the game, like again, I said the Nets will win in 6, and this loss more so confirms that, because if the Nets won this game with KD struggling, this would have been heartbreaking for the Celtics, because again, on paper, ideally, it's only let one of them go off. Don't let both of them go off. So KD, Kyrie went to work, obviously. And how did he go to work? Majority ISOs. We'll talk about that after. But, KD didn't go to work. Yes, obviously, they played great defense in terms of getting him a 1-2 turnover or a couple of turnovers, being active, being physical, getting into his grill. Basically applying the PJ Tucker context where you don't give KD space to do his double cross and to have hezzy pull-ups and stuff like that. You crowd him on the perimeter, and then when you crowd him on the perimeter, guys randomly, active, they reach and stuff like that. A lot of them were fouls, but it is what it is. You can see that once they were in foul trouble and that got out the way, KD had shots, and he had shots that he normally hits that he just missed, right? He will shoot over the top, and he missed that. That's why in the second half, what happened? He was more efficient than he was in the first half. It was like 2 for 10 or whatever it was in the first half. So they did a great job on him. But again, there was makeable shots that KD had. If you know, and he missed them. So imagine he made a 1-2 of those. That's a guaranteed win by the Celtics, by the Nets. That's a guaranteed win. So again, yes, one went off and the other one struggled on paper. And when you just sum it up, oh my God, you make one struggle and that means they're going to lose guaranteed. You can't have that statement after you saw what you saw. KD struggled, and yet the Nets still had but they had a decent 5-point lead. Obviously, now because of foul trouble, Jaylen Brown went to the cup, and you can't really foul, especially with Kyrie on him in those situations. And then they were just in foul trouble. You're not going to block the shot and contest OD because, again, foul trouble. So then they came back, by being smart, attacking the cup. Jaylen Brown got a 3 that he hit contested on Kyrie, which was a beautiful 3. And for the most part, it still came down to a game-winning layup. So that statement of all you need to do is cut off one and make one struggle is a guaranteed win, that's not even a guaranteed statement, because you literally won off a game-winning layup. If Udoka actually was like a normal coach and called timeout, do you think they're going to score in a half-court set? No, they probably won't. He let it rock in transition because he's like, if Bruce Brown and Clax don't both jump on Marcus Smart, scratch that. If Marcus Smart didn't hit a 1-2-3 prior to that, which now context is why, like, this is why, and it comes full circle. Like, if you really hoop, you could know that, okay, that's kind of in hindsight. I'm not mad. Obviously, it's frustrating and it's a heartbreaker where you're like, damn, they should have won that game, etc. But I'm not necessarily mad because I hoop. So when you actually hoop, you know that the read and react in the context is not really like a man made a bad decision. It looks like a bad decision in hindsight. Marcus Smart, yes. If you look at it, context and KYP should be, let Marcus Smart hit a late closeout 3 for a game winner. Let him be the one to hit that. That's because, you know, throughout his career, he'll normally take those and he would be Kablunski. That is where you apply KYP and apply context. Don't close out so recklessly. But then again, if he hits that, it would have been stupid. You would have been like, damn, this man's been hitting threes all game, which is what actually brought them back and even pushed a 15-point lead. His threes that he was hitting, especially in the third, was literally why that man's closed out on him. If you literally left him open and he hits that and they win, it would have been like, oh my God, that's no IQ. The man hit threes. You got to adjust within the game, read and react. So now they read and react. Obviously, it was a mistake that Bruce and Clax were like, damn, I don't see no one running there. I'm going to both go. And they both went at the same time, which is great defense in terms of closing out. But you both jump in. Now Clax is on the floor. He's out to play. It's a 4-on-3. That right there was the reason why that Tatum spin happened, because people are like, oh my God, KD left his man. Yes, KD had Tatum, but then Jaylen Brown's wide open. Am I going to go dive at the cut and then leave the 3 wide open? In that scenario, because you're down 1, you normally, principles are protect the rim and force them to shoot a 3, because a 3, even if it's open, is harder to score than a layup, right? That's kind of the basic basketball principles. But he saw Kyrie kind of there and saw Dragic there. He's like, you know what, let me shade and I'm going to stay on Brown. You know, he could have intercepted the pass. I think that he could have played more aggressive in the passing lane. But, you know, in the midst of the moment when stuff is happening, you're trying to like read and react. Damn, like Jaylen, and he just hit a 3-2 context. Jaylen just hit a 3 on Kyrie. You know what? I see Dragic and Kyrie in the paint. You know what I mean? Kyrie's also like, damn, I see the corner. And he didn't overreact to the Tatum cut too. He kind of like thought, okay, let me cut off. But then Tatum made an elite move and spun. So it literally was like great. It was like IQ versus IQ, and the greater IQ in Tatum just won that battle. So it's not more so like I'm mad at how man's reacted. They were forced to react in an unconventional way, because if Kyrie overcommits to Tatum's cut, then that skip pass to White in the corner is going to happen. Smart's not going to throw the pass to Tatum unless it was a wide open pass. You know what I'm saying? You can't overreact in hindsight to certain things. But anyways, the point is you read and react in those moments. You know what I'm saying? So that's why as a hooper, you know that, damn, it's unfortunate. I'm not even mad at Clax and Bruce running. Like, yes, both of them shouldn't have ran, but like they didn't see each other, because they literally both jumped to go get him at the same time. If Bruce went slightly earlier than Clax wouldn't have rotated. He would have saw Bruce running. You got it. I'm going to stay here. But he didn't see it, and then they both went. And it's like, damn. You know what I mean? That's kind of like, it's unfortunate. So you still have to look at the root of what you're doing. The fact that both of you reacted to Marcus Smart being open, that's a more positive sign than a negative sign. As opposed to you're watching it and you're just late watching it. Damn, he's open. Okay, I'm going to go now. Hella late. You both acted on the blink of an eye and went when you saw it. So, you know, obviously it's unfortunate, but it's not the point to be hella mad, especially given that it's game 1. Like, that's the effort that you would want from the Nets, especially this whole narrative that they play bad defense. So as a hooper, that's why it's just like, I understand what transpired, but it's not too much to be hella mad at, where it's like you're now accusing or, you know, giving fault to mans in that context scenario. 1, it's transitional play as well too. So this is why coaches, it's always in coaching, a coaching 101 or just coaching school, they tell you have to read and react, know when to call a timeout and know when to let transitional play actually just transpire in terms of a game-winning bucket. And that's kind of like, you heard Udoka say that as well too. Like, if I didn't see nothing, I had enough time. Like, the time on the clock rewarded him with not calling a timeout because we have enough time. Even if we go and for 5 seconds try to get some shit and it doesn't work, you have like 5 seconds left, 7 seconds left on the clock that I can call a timeout. Like, he had more of the assurance in his benefit in terms of the clock scenario. So like, there's so many things that were just in the Celtics' favor that now the Nets are reacting, that you can't really be too mad at the results. You have to understand what transpired in the moment. If you hoop, you know if it was Fugazi or not. So moving past that, the point that I was even trying to make, where it comes full circle, was that the point was that, understanding that it's context for everything. Everything is context, right? Everything is context in this series. You have to understand that, yes, hindsight is KD and whatever didn't go off. KD didn't go off and it's guaranteed win, but that's not necessarily a guaranteed win. If anything, it felt like the Nets gave up a win. And yet, KD struggled. So can that really be a blueprint you actually go moving forward saying, have one of them struggle and it's guaranteed win? No. This whole great defense narrative and this whole let one of them struggle, I've been told y'all was capped. So even though the Celtics won, what transpired is something that I told y'all beforehand prior to the game. Let's actually dive into and analyze that. You know what I'm saying? KD struggling. Yes, he struggled, but at the most part, didn't I tell y'all that let's look at the situations he struggled? And for KD, this is the one thing that they're probably going to have to adjust, and which kind of was frustrating watching. It was more so that, yes, the Celtics had great defense in terms of they're always going to have great defense, active hands or whatever. But my point was, is that great defense going to really matter? Because normally great defense will result in lower field goal percentages, result in lower shooting. If you go look at it, the Nets shot 54% from the field, 45% from three. And where they lost, it came down to one. If KD made his free throw, everybody else other than Clax made their free throws. KD missed one, 4 for 5. That is something that doesn't really happen from KD. Obviously, he's 90% from the free throw line all season. So the chances that he misses one in a game is not high. But if he makes that, they go to overtime and Nets had the momentum. That's a whole different scenario. He just needed to make the one free throw. This whole outcome changes. But even if then, Clax going to the line that much and missing, shooting terrible from the line obviously affected them as well too. But they both shot 19 for 24. But the Nets normally don't shoot that weak from free throw. Even the Celtics as well too. So, you could kind of pick and choose whatever. But the most part, like I said, if they have such great defense and the great defense that they have versus everybody else, because those teams don't have elite, superior one-on-one guys. So when you switch everything and you're kind of shading, those guys will struggle living at every possession one-on-one. Other teams are great because they have movement, they pass, they play make, they read, you double this, I hit the corner. Like, mans are more one-dimensional than they have guys who are okay at one-on-one in. So then now, but when you're forced to one-on-one every possession for the whole game, most teams are going to struggle, which is why the Celtics blow those teams out. But is that relevant to Nets and Celtics? And I said that switch everything that works on everybody, it doesn't matter for the Nets. Clearly, you see Kyrie snap and get, what did he get? 12 for 20, 6 for 10, 9 for 9 from free throw, 39 points on hella efficiency, majority one-on-one. What does that tell you? I'm like, if anyone is to one-on-one, the two guys and the team is going to one-on-one and live in that. The Celtics literally, the Nets beat them last year just all one-on-one with Harden, whatever. Yes, you don't have Harden, but now KD and Kyrie can live off one-on-one and everybody else. Now when they're killing one-on-one, you slight double contest. Then they kick out to the shooter and they're going to hit. They shot efficient. Yes, obviously Seth missed a 1, 2, 3, 1 for 4. Like, you could look at people individually, but as a team, they shot hella efficient. You get what I'm saying? So that's where I'm like, this whole great defense narrative is not applicable to the Nets. You can't sit there and say the Brooklyn Nets had bad defense, they allowed 115, and then say the Boston Celtics have great defense, they allowed 114. You're contradicting yourself. It's either they both had great defense or they both had bad defense. Which one you're going to choose? You get what I'm saying? And that's where I'm trying to analyze. I'm trying to debunk media narrative so y'all could really see the game for how the footage is transpiring and what it really is, instead of these narratives that just take away context and things are just irrelevant and stuff is hella cap. You get what I'm saying? So when you look at it from that perspective, dog, again, KD struggling, yes, but let's dissect his struggling. This is where it was frustrating, like I was saying prior to, what I was saying. Times he would have Marcus Smart, times he would have Jaylen Brown, even Pritchard, whoever it is, the babies. When he has the babies on him because, he's 7 foot, that's where I don't want KD on the perimeter. I don't want him on the perimeter getting the screen. I know the game plan was get a screen and force Horford or Tice or Grant Williams onto him. So that was the logic. But sometimes the screen, you're not able to get there and, KD's going left into crowded areas and stuff like that because they're crowding him. So they kind of force him a way to go because he can't really get that crossover if it's tight, right? KD needs more so a little bit of space, where now he could dance on you because of his length and now it's harder to cover. But when you crowd him, that's what PJ Tucker does. It's the PJ Tucker camp. When you crowd him like that, then now if you slap his hand and now he could fumble with the ball, or you could move him off his spot and get under him and body him up, then now, with his legs and stuff like that is now turnovers. He's off balance, all of that type of stuff. So that's where I say they played better defense and greater defense on KD, but it's not to the point where it affects him, because he's going to still get a shot off, and that's just on him whether he makes or misses it, because you're not really, he don't see you. But when he has babies on him, they should have adjusted and said, we'll do the screen, but when Tatum's on him, they do the screen and, kill the gap. That's what they're trying to basically get one of those bigs out the game, because when Horford and Tice was in, they had benefits in the offensive rebounds. That's why they killed him in offensive rebounds and still only won one, right? Because they cross match, right? Because they had Tice and Horford to start the game and to play, and when they're playing, they put Curry or Patty Mills or one of them on Tice, because he's not an offensive threat. He's not just posting up. He's not killing, right? And because KD is guarding Tatum. If technically KD, who's at the 4, should actually guard Tice, and then one of the, maybe Kyrie on Tatum or Bruce on Tatum, Kyrie on Brown. That could have been a matchup that they actually have done and forced Tatum to just post up OD, but they didn't want that, right? They want KD to lock him up for the most part. So that's where now you get the cross match where a smaller guy is on Tice. So now that's guaranteed offensive rebound. And that's kind of what was keeping the Celtics afloat and even propelled them to a 50-point lead when the Nets were hella efficient and scoring after the fouls kind of got out the way and mans were fouling. Now we have to play real defense. You seen the Nets was scoring. So when you look at it from that perspective, I was literally saying, once Tice goes to the bench, this game gonna change. When I was watching it, with my brothers and stuff, I was like, dog, once Tice comes out the game and Grant Williams comes in, that's why you see Grant Williams is a -17. Once he's in the game, now Horford has to play drop coverage on these screens. Kyrie abused now. Literally, once that one big left, Kyrie abused. KD also started abusing, and that's where you could see the run started happening. That's when they played their best basketball with one big out the game. And only one big in the game, whether it's just Tice or whether it's just Horford. Abuse them. Put them in the pick and roll, make them switch. They play drop cover, abuse them. And then Grant Williams switches onto Kyrie, abuse him. He's not shifting his feet like that's blow by, why. So when you look at it from that perspective, this is why I said the Celtics' great defense is not going to happen. They have great defenders, but they still have weakness. They have weaker defenders in their lineup that you could attack. This is why anybody in the playoffs, especially in this era with skill sets, when you have a team that can literally have skill sets, they're 3-level scorers, great defense doesn't really matter anymore, because you can pick to switch. There's a whole new philosophy on the offensive side where now you're going to pick to get mismatches. You're going to kill weaknesses to now get that guy subbed out. So now, it's different. You're not really always going at your guy one-on-one. That's why when I knock on Pascal and certain guys that can't go one-on-one on their primary defender or Steph Curry, it's not that you have to go at him all game, every game. I know that it's game plan, chess match. It's now more so you're going to purposely not even go at your main guy because you want to get that weaker guy out the lineup. You're killing other advantageous situations. It's a coaching battle, right? But for the most part, if that doesn't work, or if you're forced and they didn't switch, he hedged, ran away, are you going to one-on-one your primary defender, or are you just going to pass it? That's what I talk about. But anyways, that's a different discussion. But for the most part, again, like I said, when they had one big, it was cooking season for the Nets. But again, now when you look at it, that's why KD now started in the second half when they had one big majority of the times, his efficiency drastically went up. It's the first half where the main struggle happened, right? Kyrie started snapping, everybody started snapping, more fast break, certain even fast break opportunities. Jaylen Brown, great defense, chase down. It was great defense on both ends. Literally, it was a beautiful, great game to watch. But again, just because they won by one off a game-winning layup does not mean that certain things didn't transpire that I that I did call prior to the game. I already knew what was going to, based off the context, and I analyzed the defensive principles of both teams. I can kind of foresee what's going to happen, just based off of this and that and the personnel at hand. And that's where you see and you understand basketball. You watch with a trained eye. You can kind of just know what's going to happen, right? And this is where I'm here to kind of just tell people and give people the IQ to watch with a trained eye. Doesn't mean I get everything right, but I'm going to get majority of it. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at it from that perspective, this is why you can't put too much stock into regular season play for the most part. You have to analyze things individually with the matchup and the team versus team when it comes to each series now. That's what you have to dive into. And so when you look at that, this game, honestly, was like the Celtics kind of just sigh of relief. That's a sigh of relief. That's what happened when they went to the locker room. Yes, they're amped that Tatum got a game-winning layup, but take it in. KD struggled, right? The Celtics have great defense. Marcus Smart, let's go look at it. Marcus Smart shot 8 for 17, 4 for 9 from 3. Al Horford went 8 for 13, 2 for 2 from 3. Tatum went 9 for 18. Jaylen Brown went 9 for 19. When you look at it from that perspective, this normally would be the makings of a blowout. When you see multiple people shooting great in terms of just shooting, like the Celtics shot 47% from the field, 36% from 3. Like, you know what I mean? When you look at it from that perspective, it's like, damn, this is the blueprint. This should be normally a blowout or like a comfortable win. Because normally when Tatum scores 50, other guys struggle even more. But Tatum had 31, 9 for 18, 10 for 12 from the free throw line, all that type of stuff. But the fact that KD struggled, forget what we did. Because what we do normally is probably going to be very similar every game because the way the Nets play defense, and we don't have one-on-one creators outside of Brown and Tatum. And that's what you saw. They forced Marcus Smart to one-on-one. That's why they had droughts where they didn't score. Right? And that's why it was a back-and-forth game because both teams applied the same principles. Switch everything, force you to one-on-one. But the Nets are better at one-on-one than, you know, because the two-tier that they have. So anyways, when you look at it from that perspective, KD 9 for 24, 1 for 5, that's automatically like, damn, we did our best on KD. We have to win this game. The fact that you only won off a game-winning layup, if they didn't win this game, that would have been guaranteed that the Nets will probably win in 5. Because KD doing this is not going to happen. And when KD goes off by himself, they still have it. Like, it's going to be a close game every time with just one of the two going off. That's what I was saying. No, both of them have to go off. One of the two going off, then now you add a couple shooters hitting. That's enough. The other one just has to do decent. This whole narrative of both of them have to go off is cap. It's hella cap. Especially because their offensive, how they score, dictates double teams in scenarios where now other shooters are going to be involved. They don't have to. They play make by their offense being so elite. And that's why I try to tell people you have to really dissect and understand the game to understand what's really transpiring. You get what I'm saying? And that's where now you understand that, this would have been heartbreaking for the Celtics. If their one game they got KD to struggle and they still lost, like there might be no hope. There might be no hope. And it most likely would have been a Nets in 5 because they still went on the road. Then they're going to, you know what I mean? You're not going to get KD struggling at home. Like, that's not going to be happening. So when you look at it from that perspective, and then Ben Simmons comes game 4, like it would have been Nets in 5. So that's why I knew KD and the Nets just have to split one. Even if they don't, they could win 2 at home. But I would want them ideally to split one. You don't want to go down 0-2, in this scenario at home. But obviously, if it happens, it happens, right? It's still, they're supposed to protect home court. But for the most part, I know that the Nets will split one, right? That's kind of my prediction. We'll split one. And then from there, they'll comfortably, I didn't see Nets in 5, but I knew there's a potential that it could be. And this game was the game. If it was Nets in 5, this would have done drastic measures for the Celtics, negatively if they lost this game. So now when you look at it, let's analyze what you should implement going forward, right? For the Nets, I don't think they need to change too much. The only thing that I think they should drastically change is when they have a baby on KD, automatically run him to the post. And he normally does that where he just turns around. He doesn't have to dribble so much so then the crowding doesn't matter. And I was surprised that they didn't put him in the high post as much when he had a baby on him. Like even with Grant Williams on him, why are you running him in actions? I know their game plan was to get these. We want one of these bigs out the game. So force them to go small by running these bigs in PNR. So that's why they didn't really go to the post off mismatches when I think that they should have just played how they normally play. Normally how the Nets play is they run actions, but then if before the action happens, they switch and the baby's on KD, forget the whole play we was doing. He goes to the post. And that's how KD plays. Like I was surprised that they didn't do that at all. Like they rarely did that. So I think they're going to go back to that, which will drastically change how you implement and certain lineups that the Celtics want to run for the most part, their defense was great. You know, they gave up offensive rebounds, yes, but it's not to the point where it kills them, as you could see, because the way they play on the offensive end, that big is kind of, they mess up their defense, which is why Udoka has to go, forget it, yo. Don't play both, because it's not like we're scoring OD off the offensive rebounds. It's not like our bigs just post up, you know what I mean? It's not, they had a couple of plays, but it's not, they don't take advantage of it enough for it to be like a detriment where now the Nets have to now bring in Aldridge and Clax and play big. The Nets can go big if they want to, but it doesn't necessarily work. It hasn't worked with the dynamic. It hasn't really worked, right? And I don't advise it. I think they should continue playing how they play because, again, when Ben Simmons comes, he's going to technically be a bigger guy. So just keep doing what you're doing instead of changing it up and then going back when Ben Simmons comes. Like, you know what I mean? Ben Simmons is going to perfectly fit when he just gets inserted. So the Nets don't need to really adjust that much other than the KD factor that I talked about. And for the most part, Tatum killing one-on-one. You know what I mean? You kind of live with that, man. Tatum is nice. He's a superstar. And this just shows you he's a superstar. He's like, there's a reason why Tatum is more so the go-to guy than Brown. There's levels to this, right? Brown obviously is nice, but there's really levels to this. Tatum is even more composed, knowing when to add strength and going to the bucket. Claxton has beautiful defense, but Tatum is he's just a killer. Just a little, that double cross and just a little slight. Clax doesn't move right away. Now he has a little step in. Clax is on everything. Tatum didn't cross him, didn't do like Tyson. Clax is on everything. But Tatum is just that nice, man. He's now more smarter, more poised. Like, Tatum is beautiful. He's a superstar. Jaylen Brown also too. Might play better. Like, this is a situation where it's gonna be. This is why most people say 6 or 7, because they mirror each other more so in terms of just the top heavy from the two guys. They can go one-on-one and create 3-level scores, and then everybody kind of eats and dictates off of them. If you force those other guys to one-on-one, eventually the ball's going to go back to Brown. Eventually the ball's going to get to Tatum, and they're going to one-on-one. Rarely you're going to get a Drummond post-up. Rarely you're going to get a Horford post-up. Rarely you're going to get a Clax post-up. Sometimes you might get Seth. Sometimes Marcus Smart now attacks one-on-one. Like, you know what I mean? But for the most part, they're more so mirroring each other. When you're forced to one-on-one, they kind of look the same. Even though the Nets, when they're not forced to one-on-one, have better offensive flow and movement than the Celtics. But when you're forced to one-on-one, it's going to go KD, Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, and we go from there. And that's why it's going to be a back and forth game for the most part. It's going to go swings, momentum shifts, whatever. So, you know, we'll see. The foul did affect both teams for the most part, but regardless, it's a beautiful game. It's going to be a beautiful series, but just because the Nets lost does not mean what I said didn't transpire. Understand that. So you're going to see, like, that's why I told y'all, this Nets defense, this is cap when they say they have bad defense. And then the Celtics defense that they say is so great is not really going to be not going to affect the Nets that much. Yes, they're going to have moments where deflection, steals, turnovers. Yeah, but both teams have 16, 15 turnovers. So is the Nets not playing great defense too and getting steals? Didn't the both teams shoot efficiently? So they didn't both have bad defense at times, good defense at times? Like, that's what I'm trying to tell people. Like, people have to give the Nets their credit on defense or deduct the credit that you give to the Celtics on their defense in terms of both of them playing one-on-one. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, you already know it's True Talks. It's True Talks. Share, like, and subscribe. We out here. There's no down here. There's no drought here. You feel me? I appreciate y'all. You already know. That's what elite looks like, boy. I'm trying to tell y'all, man. You have to understand, bro. This is what elite looks like. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a great series. One of the all-time series, man. It's going to be beautiful to see. So, you know, let's understand and know that this is what elite looks like, man. Appreciate it. Context is going to be happening game by game for me right now. You know what I'm saying? Spread the word. Again, share, like, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. You already know. And I'm out, man.